Hello and welcome to Shotgun Academy and our course, Shotgun Basics. This course is ideal for novices and those of you interested in taking up shotgun shooting and applying for a certificate. There's lots of technical information and it's the theory of shotgun shooting, and lots of facts that will help you if you desire to do so is to take the Shotgun Basics test for a certificate. We cover the essential information to get you started on what we like to call a life skill. Being safe around shotguns and knowing the law will help and support your application should you wish to own a shotgun yourself. We will look at the design of a shotgun and the key principles you need to adopt to achieve successful shooting. So when COVID restrictions subside, you'll be in great shape to book a coaching session and get hands-on tuition. So let's go. It's about 25 minutes and lots of information. Safety should be common sense, obviously, but you need that extra diligence when handling a shotgun. It is a serious responsibility. Simply put, there are actions you should never take when handling a shotgun. You don't leave it unattended. You don't play with the triggers. The different things to be aware of is, like if you're shooting, you need to be aware of your environment. If it's power cables or insulators, then you don't shoot. And you always make sure that you've got a proper balance, a sure footing. And that helps enormously. And there's good etiquette as well. A standard semi-automatic shotgun, which you'll see in a minute, can usually take 3 cartridges. However, most clay shooting grounds, you should only really load 2. So safety is paramount. So too is your personal safety, and hence PPE is, again, important. You're going to hear me say that word a lot, important. Your ears and eyes are delicate and they need to be protected when you're shooting. So habitually wearing PPE, glasses, ear defenders, sometimes a cap, having good cover is really appropriate. You'll see here that our shooters, 3 of them are holding a break action shotgun. They're all safe. The guns are open and empty and held in the very good T-grip. The gentleman on the top right-hand corner is holding his semi-automatic correctly as well. You can see the orange flag is in the breech, which makes sure that it cannot be fired, so it's in a safe position. And PPE, if you make the mistake of not protecting, say, your ears, you can lose your hearing. It could be irreparable just by one loud gunshot. So PPE, personal protective equipment, at all times. When you're handling a gun, the 2 specific differences are obviously semi-automatic and over and under, a break action. Muzzle awareness, the barrels where the lead comes from the end of the barrels where you point and shoot, we call that muzzle awareness, so that all times you're going to get into the habit of knowing exactly where your barrels are pointing. And safety, as we just saw in the photographs, the red flag goes in the breech of the semi-automatic, and an open and empty gun for the break action. When you're passing the gun to somebody, then it should be stock first, so they can be looking down the barrels, so they can be checking for anything that could be a blockage or something that's not quite right. And likewise, if you're handing over a semi-automatic, like the gentleman in the picture, let's have it upright, showing that the orange or the bright colored flag is in the breech. Your shotgun certificate, if you're going to go for that, it's quite straightforward. It's a sort of document you must look after and keep very safe. It is important. You'll need it to purchase or transfer a shotgun, and even to purchase cartridges once you're 18 years of age. It's a straightforward application. Good character helps, and a good reason to want to have a shotgun. Generally, that would be for sporting clays like skeet or English sporting. And you need to demonstrate that you've got adequate security at home, where you're going to put the gun cabinet out of sight in a discrete position, and it must be bolted to a solid wall. The lock and key type version of the cabinet, only you need to know about where the keys are. The keys should not be accessed to anybody who does not have a shotgun certificate or has been approved by the local constabulary. If there is a loss or theft, you must inform your firearms inquiry officer, who will come round and check your cabinet. You need to inform them within 7 days. And if you were to borrow a shotgun from a colleague, you can have that shotgun for 72 hours without notifying the authorities. So that's quite a useful piece of information to have. Obviously, you're not going to be a risk to public safety, but you're going to need 2 referees to confirm that. And therefore, it's a straightforward application, and it's something that will hold you in fine stead. As we said earlier, it is a responsibility to own shotguns. And then when you've got your shotgun, the key thing here is to be careful when you're transporting it, and obviously where you take it. Armed trespass is very serious. To be on land without permission, not in a case of actually shooting, but even just holding your shotgun, it is still armed trespass, and it's a very serious offence indeed. We recommend that when you're transporting a shotgun, be very discreet, keep the gun out of sight, obviously. And if you have to stop before you get home to lock your gun away, then what we recommend is that you'll take your certificate with you and the forend, which we'll talk about when we show you different parts of the gun in the next few slides. The forend is easy detachable from the rest of the gun. 50 feet is a good little rule to remember, is that you shouldn't discharge a shotgun within 50 feet of a public highway. That's the Highways Act in England and Wales. There is a similar law in Scotland, which was created a little bit later, but it's a good one to remember. The Section 11.6, this is an important part of the Firearms Act of 1968. And what this does is it helps you to shoot without having a certificate on approved land, like a clay shooting ground. You will be supervised, and it lets you shoot like when you're having your lessons. And that's because the Section 11.6 has been applied for. The firearms inquiry officer has approved the ground and the area as safe for shot fallout, for clay fallout, and it's to shoot inanimate targets only. And that can be operated 28 days a year without planning permission. So it's quite a useful ability for non-certificate holders to use the shotgun. And there we have it. So let's look at the different parts of the shotgun and all their different names and that. So some of them are well worth remembering. So a shotgun by definition is up on the right-hand side there. It's you may have heard of sawn-off shotgun. Well, that's if it's been badly adulterated and it's cut down, then that's illegal. It's got to be at least 24 inches for it to be a shotgun. But a bore size of 2 inches is massive. That is very, very big. And it's obviously going to be a lot smaller than that. You may see YouTube videos where somebody is firing like a Tommy gun, but it's with shotgun cartridges, and they'll be shooting 25 or 100 in a very short space of time. And that's a magazine and revolving. In England, that definition is it's not a shotgun, it's a firearm. So we have to be very specific there. The standard types of shotgun as listed there, over and under, side by side, semi-automatic, and pump action, which is similar to a semi-automatic, but you're using your hand to bring the cartridges up into the chamber. So if you see something like that, it's not a shotgun, it's a firearm if it's using a revolver or magazine style of action. You can see there, you're going to hear some of these terms a little bit later on, like the rib, the forend we've just mentioned, the stock, heel, butt, toe, the comb is where you're going to rest your cheek when you mount the gun, and the action. If we were to break the gun down and separate it, it comes out in 3 parts. You've got the barrels, you've got the stock and action that come together, and then you've got the forend. The forend effectively locks it together. It's a design of over 400 years, and it's really stood the test of time. So on the comb, that's where your cheek will rest when you're mounting the gun, and you'll be looking along the rib. So you'll hear those expressions, as I say, a few times. Here's the shotgun mechanics. It's a simplified cutaway image where we can identify parts that help the gun perform safely. A gun should always be checked, if it's handed to you, open and empty, of course, but if it's loose or has cracks in the wood or bulges in the barrels, it should not be fired, and you need to be very aware. Not all guns are in good working order, so it's something you need to be aware of. The safety catch, it does not make a gun entirely safe and should never be completely relied on. The safety catch only locks the trigger mechanism. It does not stop or lock the firing mechanism. When the hammer with the firing pin strikes the cartridge primer and does not create a clean shot, it's what we call a misfire. Now, misfire is where the cartridge is not ignited, the primer is not ignited. So what we do there is we bring the gun down to our waist and we wait 20 seconds just to see if the primer in the cartridge has started to burn, so maybe it's going to hang and then fire in a few seconds. So we normally wait about 20 to 30 seconds, and then we open up the gun to remove the errant cartridge. The chamber, as you can see, where the cartridge drops in, and it's got that little bit at the end we call the forcing cone, which allows the cartridge to open cleanly, and then it forces the pellets down through the barrels, which is the true bore of the gun. Here's a cartridge cutaway. The rim is made of brass, like the head there, and that's when the primer strikes, the propellant explodes, expands dramatically, and forces the wadding, which is there, is a plastic wadding holding our pellets, our shots, and it will force that down the barrels. The expansion is dramatic, and normally if you have more propellant, there will be a bigger brass head on it, depending again on the size of cartridge. But size of cartridge leads us into, it's possible to accidentally drop a 20 bore cartridge in a 12 bore gun. And then if you follow that with a 12 bore cartridge, it can be catastrophic, dangerous, and very, very serious injuries can occur. Always checking the barrels habitually is something that your coach will be helping you with and reminding you of, because even the slightest blockage, it could be an insect or a leaf, it can bring about pressure changes within the barrels, and that's something that we want to eliminate at all times. Bore. In America, they call it gauge. So a bore is, again, it's a 400-year-old design here, but a bore is, as you can see, it's a pound of lead made into spherical balls. So you get 12 matching spherical balls from a pound of lead. You'll get 20 matching spherical balls. And that's what the gunsmiths of many years ago created, and how they could tell what size the gun would be. As the bore goes up, the size of the bore goes down. So a 12 bore is bigger than a 16 bore, which is bigger than a 20 and a 28. The interesting one is that a regular shotgun in this country is a 410. And that, fun enough, is originated from its barrel diameter. It's actually a measurement. It's not to do with bore. 12 bore, 12 gauge, the same thing. Bore is the true length of in the barrel where the bore will go. So gauge is mostly used in America. It's a definition of true gauge. There we go. So let's move on to something we would put at the end of the barrels, which is chokes. Now, I wouldn't get too involved with chokes in the early stages. It's a very interesting, fascinating, and complicated subject. But depending on your gun mount, your position and the way you're shooting, your combination of gun and cartridge, lots of different things can happen. But just to have an idea at this early stage is that a cylinder, which will be the actual bore of the gun, and there'll be no choking. So that's going to give a wide pattern. If you can imagine a hula hoop, and all of the pellets will go through that hula hoop. In the full choking, imagine that the hula hoop will be reduced in size, say to a dustbin lid, and then that will be a tighter pattern of pellets going through. It's not necessarily about the distance, it's about how the pattern gets a little bit tighter. So, for example, at a shooting ground, a clay shooting ground, as we identified in our section 11.6, the maximum size of cartridge that you're going to use is a weight of 28 grams and 6 pellets. The size of the pellets is called 6. So in that cartridge will probably be 220, 250 pellets, size 6. Eye dominance. Eye dominance, or it's sometimes called master eye. And it's, again, another one of those things that is very, very important. And your coach will help you determine exactly how your eyes are. Everybody has some form of dominance, be it left or right. If you're right-handed, it does not necessarily mean that you are right eye dominant. For example, the two pictures on the right-hand side there, including Burt Lancaster, he and the other gentleman are actually holding the gun on their right side because they're right-handed, but their left eye is trying to take over. And that will cause a lot of problems with their shooting. Basically, they will miss. As you can see on the left-hand side, however, our young man there, who's purposely not wearing PPE for this pose that we did, he's actually got a perfect alignment. He's got a right eye dominance and he's got both eyes open and he's coming off of the right shoulder. And you can see that his eye is resting along the rib of the gun. So he's overlooking that. Now that's, in fact, helping his gun mount. And wherever he looks now is where the gun will point. So here's a little test for you. If you are right-handed, raise your left arm, point with your index finger to something, say 12 yards away, both eyes open and focus, and then close your left eye and see what happens. If your finger stays exactly on the point that you're pointing at, then you're right eye dominant. If it moves, then your dominance is going to be moving over to the left side. So it's a nice, easy little test to do, but your shotgun coach will be able to help you. Once we have our master eye and our eye dominance confirmed, we need to check a stance. And the stance will change as you get a little bit more experience. So a good starting point, if you're going to shoot off your right shoulder, according to your eye dominance, of course, is 2 o'clock. Sometimes 5 to 2 or a little bit in that movement. But the key is that you're balanced and that your leading foot is, leg is bent, so you're putting a little bit weight forward, as we like to say, nose over the toes. If you've not got a good stance, you should not shoot. What I mean by that is that you need to be well balanced. For example, like a fine stroke in squash or tennis, it allows you to move that balance, to move your weight, and a good swing of the gun when you're after a target is something that is very important. So balance, and if your footing is unsure, then you don't shoot. And like we said earlier, if you're near power lines, you don't shoot. If you can't see the target clearly, you don't shoot. And that's the sort of thing about balance, is that it's taken for granted, but a lot of shots are missed because the shooter is out of balance. And we can get into that a little bit more with the techniques that we approach. So we've got eye dominance, we've got our stance, and now we need to fit the gun. You can see in the top left here how the comb is the cheek of the shooter is resting on the comb, and the stock, the heel, is firmly into the pocket in the shoulder. That's a very good gun fit there. And again, bottom right hand corner, you can see that the toe of the heel of the stock there is perfectly in line with the top of the shoulder. all very nicely done. And again, between the pistol grip of the wrist and the nose, it's about 2 or 3 fingers wide and allows for a good, comfortable mount. If that is a problem that you can't seem to get that right feel to holding the gun, then obviously it's the academy coach or a professional gun fitter will help you. And beware that when you're buying a gun, the gun needs to fit you. That's the most important thing. It needs to fit you, because if the stock is too short, it will cause you to hunch and lift your head up. And likewise, if the stock is too long, you're going to have trouble seeing along the barrels. So little things like that come much more important than the price or the brand or how it looks. If some guns are beautiful, aesthetically wonderful, pieces of craftsmanship, but the most important thing is the gun fits you. That's something well worth remembering. So let's look at some techniques. We've got 3 techniques to show you, but the key thing that we have at the academy is that what we coach our clients on is you calculate the break point. And you calculate that break point because, as we know, is that when you're shooting with a shotgun, it's a moving target. So therefore, you must have a moving gun, unlike a rifle. A rifle is normally a stationary target, so therefore you need to keep the rifle as still as possible. Moving target, moving gun when it comes to shotgun shooting. We think that if you focus on the target and you've got your eyes sorted, you've got your stance sorted, and you've got your gun fit sorted, because there, wherever you look, is where your gun will point. So what we encourage is that you focus on the target and determine the speed it's going, how far away it is, and the trajectory or the flight path that it is on. Because that way, then you can bring your gun through the target to the break point, keep the gun moving, release the cartridge by pulling the trigger, and then the lead will go to the point where the clay is going. So you're actually going to meet the 2 together. So moving target, moving gun. And as you can see from this picture of a shot string, you can see the clay, but you can see at the end of the barrels, that's the propellant dissipating in the air. And of course, just ahead of that is the shot string of lead. So imagine all those pellets that came out of the cartridge. They're now going to be sometimes, up to 1 meter in length, but generally speaking, about 18 to 20 inches. So you can see that they're on their way to collide with that clay in the air. So all of that calculation is what we call lead or forward allowance. And it's for you to determine, and every shot is different. So let's take a look at some of the techniques. Method is one of the most reliable techniques there is. If you've got the time, so you can lock your barrels onto the target when you pick it up. You move with it because then that's giving you a much better understanding of how fast it's going, because you're taking that information from the target. And then you pull ahead to determine your forward allowance, and that gives you your break point. Follow through because you're pulling the trigger as the gun is still moving, and then you follow through, and then you bring the gun down waist height and then open it up to eject your cartridges. It's a nice rhythm and style to the shot. So that's the method. There's another one here. It's called swing through. It's sometimes called, what's it called? They call it, it's sometimes called smoke trail. That's right. Exponents of smoke trail bring about visions of rocket ships and vapor trails, but we like to call it swing through because the clay has already passed the barrels. So your pickup then is you're going to swing the gun through the target, taking into account the speed, the distance, and the trajectory the target is on to achieve your break point, and then follow through. Again, it's a calculation. There's a lot happens in a very short space of time, and that's part of the excitement. There's going to be a time when you pull the trigger, you know you have broken that target because you can see and feel your calculations working. So a lot happens in a short space of time, and that's what makes the sport so exciting and interesting. And here's another one. The last one of our trio is maintained lead. Maintained lead, as you can see, is your barrels are always in front of the target. Same calculations though, same assimilation of speed and distance and trajectory. And your coach behind you will be able to see exactly what's happening with your gun, with your shot, with your timing and your rhythm. So there we have all those different things there. I hope you take the test now to get your Shotgun Academy certificate. It is the basics. It's an introduction, something we brought together because we couldn't, we thought of this during lockdown. So we thought, well, we can't do any coaching out on the range. So what we'd do is to bring a little bit of shotgun shooting theory and technical knowledge to you at home. So we hope you like it. I hope you take the test, and we thank you very much. Goodbye.